If you're willing to share your biggest aha of the conference so far, that would be amazing. Pop that into the chat just as I get everybody out of the waiting room. Well, we'll go ahead and get started then. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kelly Bornmann, and I am a Member Services Director with ERB. Thank you so much for stopping by. I know it is the end of the conference almost. We've got our closing speaker coming up very shortly, but I'd like to thank you so much for being here today. As I said, my name is Kelly Bornmann, and I am with ERB. Prior to joining ERB in June, I was a career educator with the privilege of teaching and administering in public, parochial, and private schools on both the East and West Coast, most recently here in Sacramento, California. So like many of you, and the themes that I've heard over the course of the few days here is that just a passion for creating safe and trusting environments for the students that I've worked with over the years. And part of my role at ERB is working now with educators in creating those same kinds of environments in their classrooms. So without further ado, since we just have a really short period of time, I'm going to introduce our topic today, which is on finding the sweet spot, sort of how SEL programming and data can support student well-being and academic growth. So if you have questions, I'll leave time at the end, but if you have questions, feel free to pop those in the chat. And of course, you're welcome to message me afterwards or stick around a little while if I don't get to those during our short time today. Right. So prior to joining to ERB, as I mentioned, I was a classroom teacher. And then when I joined ERB, one of my roles came in developing and promoting our SEL Insights program. ERB, for some of you who might be familiar with it, we've been around for over 90 years, playing the role of helping schools use data insight and analytics to inform curriculum and develop instruction. So what I'd love, if anybody's willing to share in the chat, are perhaps some ways that you use data to inform your own instruction. And also if you're using any kind of social or emotional learning in your curriculum. So just give everybody a moment to do that. I'm just going to make sure that everybody's had a chance to join. I think we've got everybody in. All right, so no takers on the chat, no problem. I will keep going. So one of the things that's really important to me is understanding where my students are. And I've heard this theme over and over again in the conference sessions that I've attended this week is, where are our students as we come off of the pandemic from last year, and where are we as we're heading through this year? Where are they in terms of their relationships with each other, with us? Where are they in relationship to their academics and their school community? So one of the things that's really important as teachers is we know in our daily observations of students that we take in all kinds of information, whether it's through observation, formal or informal assessment, and we have a sense of where students might be. Students themselves also have input on where they are in terms of their own social and emotional well-being, as well as their academics. Where do they view themselves? And then that third piece of that puzzle is, what does the data indicate? What kinds of pieces of data are we gathering that's objective and reliable that we can use as a piece of the puzzle to help us understand that sweet spot of where a student might be? And understanding that sweet spot is so critical to the work as an educator of where we go next in supporting that student to become an independent learner, to accessing our curriculum, to being a part and feeling welcome and safe in our school community. So I love this quote by Leo Vygotsky. So what a child can do today with assistance, she'll be able to do by herself tomorrow. And in one of the sessions I heard earlier in this week is like, what is education about? And I think for me, that kind of encapsulates that, right? What can I do to partner with this student to move forward? So how does this program, how does SEL play into that? How does data play into that? And that's what we're gonna kind of hit on in the next few moments. So first things, we need to be thinking about where our students are at. I've been chatting with educators all across the country over these last several months. I'm hearing things about how happy folks are to be back on campus with each other. But we're also recognizing that there are some social skills that perhaps were lost or slowed in the cohorting. At least on my campus last year, we had our middle schoolers, they were with one cohort. They didn't get a chance to interact with all of their other peers in the middle school. So it's taking some adjustment for them this year. How do they develop those relationship skills that they didn't have a chance to practice so much last year? I'm hearing from heads of schools as well as educators, just in general, where are our students at and how do we figure that out? And then a very dear friend of mine just kind of summed it all up. She says, every day as educators, we walk into the classroom and there's so many battles, whether they're good battles or not, but we don't always have the resources that we need. So maybe it's just remembering to start with those small acts of kindness, treating ourselves and our students kindly, rebuilding those relationships that we know are so important. We know from research that social and emotional well-being of all members of the school community is paramount to fostering a student's sense of belonging and academic growth. And again, themes that I've been hearing through the whole week that we've been here and other schools and conferences that I've been attending over the last couple of months. So why SEL, right? Emotions drive how we think, how we pay attention, how we make decisions, how we manage our time, and countless of other processes that impact students and ourselves every single day in the classroom. Right? We also know that students can carry a higher cognitive load when they're in a high trust and low stress environment. Right? So relationships are stronger. We're better equipped to deal with a wide range of learning issues if we've got the social and emotional capacity to be able to do that. And these are skills that we learn. These are not skills that we're necessarily born with. We have to learn and grow and practice. The realities, as we've heard over and over, and I'm not going to harp on the negative, but the trauma from the pandemic is real, right? Teachers, 1 in 3 teachers by the end of this year will consider or leave their profession as a result of the pandemic. The American Academy of Pediatrics has recognized that mental health is a national emergency for our children. So we know this every day, but few educators have the tools and the resources to manage their own trauma, let alone that of their students. Right? We need the tools to be able to do that. That's what makes a successful social and emotional program. So ERB set out to partner with Rethink Education. Rethink is an expert in curriculum development. ERB, for those who are not familiar, we're experts in assessment. So we partnered together, bringing our expertise together to develop a robust social and emotional learning program for students in K through 12, and then the teachers, of course, who work with them. It is designed around CASEL's 5 competencies, 5 core competencies: self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. Okay, all of these make up that social and emotional learning of ourselves and just knowing how to be a human, how we interact with each other on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so what sets our program apart? One of the most important things that we know is important, that data is an important component to understanding, again, where a student is and how effective a program is. So social and emotional learning is for all learners. Our program is research-based and it's written by experts in the field. It's comprehensive curriculum that is accessible for students in kindergarten through grade 12. And then through the program, and I'll highlight this in just a moment, you're able to gather data in addition to your observations in class, and then also be able to use the lessons, the quizzes, reporting tools, and so forth to make this a part of your whole school community. This is not just sort of one of those one and done, we've done it for 5 or 10 minutes. So we want to make sure that you have all the tools you need to deliver a robust program. The program itself starts off with a student self-assessment, and this is where students have the opportunity to reflect on their own social and emotional skills. They're guided through a very short self-inventory. It's about 15 minutes, and it's all positive statements, and then students can choose to agree where they fall on that Likert scale of agree or disagree. At the end of the program, the students take this again, and it will give indications to the student as well as the teachers of how well they've taken those lessons, how they've practiced those skills, and indicate where there are areas of strength and where there are areas of growth. The data itself is reported in a variety of different ways, but they're all tied to lesson areas in terms of domains as well as specific topic areas. So as you're looking at the information, you can make decisions as an educator on how to best support either individual students or groups of students. The data is reported in a variety of different ways. As I mentioned, you have some detailed analysis with respect to the individual questions or items from the inventory, as well as looking at students individually. And this is all sample data. So these are, please don't, I'm not sharing any individual students on here. Teachers also have the opportunity to engage in a classroom rating scale where you can move and slide your students around with how you think they're progressing through the curriculum. Where do they fall now? And then you would do that through multiple touch points during the year. And then again, you can use this data in connection with the other parts of the program and other observations that you're making to make some decisions on how to move forward through the curriculum itself. The curriculum, one of the things that I love about it is that it is divided into 3 different sections. It's a learn, practice, and dive deeper. 5 to 20 minutes. It's really up to you on how you want to set that up. We suggest that you infuse this throughout your classes and over the course of a week, but we'll work with anybody on individual implementation plans. The other thing that's great about it is it can either be standalone. I can hand it to you on a platter. You could use it by the end of next week, or you can incorporate different aspects of it into any existing programs that you already have. The lesson plans, this is just a quick sample. I know it's small on the screen, but the lesson plans are designed so, again, that you can just take them and use them. Gives you timing, gives you activities. There's links to all of the resources that you would need to implement the program. And then there's suggestions for strategies that you can use with learners with different needs. Everything is delivered on an easy to use platform. Teachers have access, students have access. There's resources for all levels of access and very easy to use. And one of the first programs to do that. The thing that I also like to point out, which was a real draw for me, is that there's a My Training component. So as adults, as learners, we also need support, whether it's practicing or strengthening our skills or just thinking about how we might model and interact with these skills with our students. So there's a My Training section that you can take and work through on your own or as part of a professional development group in your school. And you can also earn credits if you choose to, or certificates at the end. And I know I'm going very quickly. Our time is so short, so I just want to make sure I get through everything. One of the things that, again, kind of thinking back to this idea of data and Leo Vygotsky. So this idea of a sweet spot, he really termed that the zone of proximal development. And it's sort of what we know at this moment for an individual student and what's not known, right? When we're thinking about curriculum, we're thinking about social and emotional development. We want to meet our students where they're at and then help them move through this zone or this sweet spot, provide scaffolding support, social relationships that will allow them to move to maximize their potential. So the other part of our time today is just briefly talking about the idea of using formative assessment. And I know this has come up a few times in some different sessions. Data itself is just information, whether it's achievement, whether it's aptitude, whether it's social and emotional learning. It's what you do with the data that makes the difference. So interim assessments can be used formatively as benchmarks. In this case, our milestones assessment is for academic achievement. Where are they at? Is not meant to compare them to other people. It's not meant to compare them or judge you as an educator. It's just truly meant to find out where a student's at, what next steps do we need to take in terms of our curriculum and our instruction. So these can be really powerful tools. And if you're looking to implement social and emotional learning, using them together can be even more powerful. Because if you know that a student might be struggling with how to do some basic multiplication, but you also know that they have very strong relationship skills, working in peer-to-peer or small groups might be a really excellent strategy for helping that student strengthen those academic areas where they need to grow. On the other hand, if a student is really struggling with relationship skills, putting them in a partner or a small group situation is going to create a lot of stress. And so we want to understand where they're at socially and emotionally, what their self-management is, how they can make decisions, and then use that to help us plan our academics. The milestones itself, I'll just tell you just really briefly about that. They are delivered online and they can be meant to be delivered in a class period. There are norm options for some schools that are interested in that, but like I said, for me as an educator, what I'm really looking at is individual growth and where students are at. So in kind of summing this up and super quick and what could be many, a whole hour and a half, supporting a student's social and emotional learning, understanding where they're at in terms of their academic achievement really leads to us being able to help students thrive. And so I view these personally as the cornerstone of student-centered education. It's how I ran my classrooms, of really trying to understand all of the pieces of the student. And I know, I think it was Carl Sabatino's session yesterday did a beautiful graphic on all the pieces that a student brings to their learning every single day. And this is just sort of a short, quick summary of that. So why SEL, why data? I think as educators, we have the responsibility to ensure that every student is able to learn in a safe and trusting environment. Building their social and emotional capacity and competency also makes sure that they are able to maximize their potential. So maybe it's not so much why, but why not? All right, some quick calls to action. When you go back to class next week, if nothing else, small acts of kindness are always a good place to start when it's building social and emotional capacity. Make it a habit to gather data and use that data in a way to help you inform your instruction. Advocate for robust SEL curriculum and the support to implement it into your school. And then advocate for the use of formative assessment tools. Again, objective, reliable data coupled with what you already know and what the student knows allows you to really partner with that student as a learner. And administrators, if we have any of you, think about that funding. It's budget time, allocating funds for next year. And then please join me one-on-one if you'd like to after this, or reach out for a longer conversation. We have about 2 minutes left. I know that was like super speed of me talking. If anybody has any questions, feel free to come off mute, pop them into the chat. Here's my contact information. I'd love the opportunity to chat with you in greater detail about what's going on in your school. But thank you so much for popping by. I'm so grateful to see that we had some folks in our session today, and I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you again. Thank you again, everybody, for joining me today. Very grateful for your time. Have a wonderful weekend and enjoy our keynote, who will be up in just a few minutes. Thank you, Noah. Thank you for the comment. I could talk about formative